Hello and welcome to this video in which we are going to be adding a little MP3 player and a little speaker so we can add some sound to our weekend project. So what we're going to need basically, as already mentioned, is a little MP3 player called a DFPlayer. We're going to need some from a speaker. You could even pull one of these out of an old laptop or some other old sort of tape recorder, some wires. We're going to modify the code and that's all we'll really need to get this fully working. So if we jump into the circuit, this is obviously what we've already got, which is the ESP Mini, some batteries and the servos to make our little Droid drive. But we're going to add the DFPlayer. So the DFPlayer, as it sounds, it's a little MP3 player, fairly simple to work with. Pick them up from the usual sort of places. The wiring of it, if we have a look at the specification pin out, is I'm not interested in any of this size. You don't even need a microcontroller to make these work. You can just hook wires directly and make them play. What I'm interested in is the voltage. We'll run that off the Arduino, well, the ESP. I want the RX and TX. We'll have to link those directly to the ESP chip. And then we'll want the speaker connection, and then the ground, and that's it. So really it comes down to 5 wires in total. So I've put the DFPlayer onto the breadboard so I can show the wiring. I'm just going to move the labels to the side just so they're out of my way a little bit, but just so I don't forget where they are though and what they're doing. So just like in the previous week, I'm just going to grab a brush tool to draw how the connections are going. So if I just choose red, well, that's more orange, but it'll do for now. So I'm just going to hook up this red so it's coming from the same line of connections. So if I just put red, and that is going to go straight into this pin. I've got the RX and TX, so I'm connecting this up to D6 and D7. Again, I might just change the colour of this just so I don't get confused with it. I'm going to keep, I'm just going to go for green for now, it doesn't really matter though. So the RX is going to go to my D7, so it would go straight to that. My TX is going to go to D6. Again, the colours don't really matter. And we can change these pins in the code, so again, that doesn't make a big difference either. And then the ground, just like anything, we need to hook this back to itself. So if I just flip those round, and ground is this pin, so if I just swing this pin round, all the way over there. So that's really bad wiring, but you can sort of see where this is going, a bit neater on the real board. And then finally we can hook up a speaker. So there I've got a little speaker, just similar to this one just here. And if I just connect these, now this doesn't matter which way around they go, but I can just put a speaker to this bit, to that pin, speaker to that pin, and that would be our wiring done. So it's nothing particularly complicated or challenging. So our next step is over to the workbench, get these wires soldered onto this same board that we've already used. So I'm going to be putting the DFPlayer just to the left of the ESP. That's why I left that little area free. And then once we've got that soldered up, we can then move into modifying the code and have this all up and working. So I'm taking the MP3 player. Now I've run out of the correct pin header sockets, so I'm just going to cut one down to size. Now I've actually made this really hard for myself, which is I have put the MP3 player so close there's not actually enough distance between these pins to get the connections made from the ESP to the actual DFPlayer. So I'm just having to stop to have a think about how can I fix this. This is basically poor planning. I didn't think about that gap. So I'm deciding whether I'm going to desolder these headers and move it over to give myself some space to work with, or just route some wires around. Yeah, this was poor planning, so it's going to take me a little bit longer to figure this out now. Okay, so that took a little bit longer to desolder than I would have liked. So what I'm going to do for today, for this tutorial, is I'm just going to stick to these pins on the end, and while this is not ideal, I'm going to just work with it on the end of it, which means it's very vulnerable, but it should do to at least show the process of make it work, and I'll tidy this up a little bit later on. I could have covered this up and just start from again without ever showing anybody, but I think it's really important to show that it's okay to make mistakes. We all do it, and we just have to sort of figure things out and try again. So that's just taken considerably longer than would have expected for just simply wiring up, what was it, 6 wires. I'll take some photos and put them at the end so you can have a closer look if required. Because the next step now is to write some code and test to make sure this is all fully working. Okay, so here we are in the Arduino IDE, and the first thing we're going to really do is this actually working? So we're going to remove all the receiver code from it and just try and set this up. So in the past I've been able to simply go onto tools, manage libraries and install the DFPlayer libraries. However, if I just go onto the library manager and just type in DFPlayer, we should see a few options. So we can see I've already got a couple installed. Now in the past I was able to quite happily use this DF Robot one, but it doesn't seem to be working with a lot of the newer DF players that I have bought. So by searching a few forums, getting some help off the Arduino Facebook page, I came across, well, I was presented with this library, which the link will be down below. And if I just go on to the DF Player itself, I'm just going to say download zip file. And there we go, it's already downloaded. I'm just going to check where that's gone to. That's fine. So I'm just going to go on to Sketch, include library, add zip file, find the one that I just downloaded. Okay, so now I should be able to go and choose that one, I hope. Okay, now it's not clear which library it is, but since I've installed those two, I'm going to install this one as well and hope it doesn't cause any clashes. Now before we go any further, this is my board for Huyang, just there, which controls servos and audio, and I'm just going to pinch the micro SD card from Huyang's head and just put this into this board now for testing purposes. Now it's probably important to mention that when you copy MP3s to this, the order in which they are copied across is the order they will play. So it doesn't care about alphabetical order or numerical order. There are some other programs you can get that can help organise that, but I'm quite happy just to work with it as it is for now. Okay, so I've got Arduino loaded up, we've imported the library. I've already put the code in to save you watching me typing out. So if I start at the very top, I've included software serial. This is going to allow us to create a serial connection on different pins on the Arduino so we can send data to and from the ESP to the MP3 player itself. I've included the library that we just downloaded. I'm setting some parameters now. Some of this code is just coming straight from the GitHub. I've just sort of changed it around a little bit, ready to put into the bigger code. So we've got the MP3 receiver pin, which is going straight to D6, as we wired earlier. I've got the transmitter pin, which is going to D7. I mean, we can change these around. It all depends on how you're working. The speed is, the baud rate is 9600. And then just some data for how fast and how much data are we sending in one go. I'm then creating a software serial, which from that library. Like I said, this allows us to use different pins for like a USB connection, basically. I'm creating an object called MP3, which is our DFPlayer object, and I'm just setting this number of tracks -1. So if it's still -1, I know it's not read properly, but I'll come back to that. So inside my setup code, I'm just delaying 1000, so I'm delaying 1 second to give it time to sort of clean up the data between this and the computer for debugging purposes. I'm setting the serial begin, again same speed, so this is the data coming down the USB port. If we didn't use a software serial, we couldn't use USB at the same time, and I need that for now. I'm waiting half a second. I'm then saying we're booting up this chip again to prove to me everything's working. Waiting 1 second, and I'm creating a function called initialize DFPlayer and then random play. So play a random track on this memory card, on this SD card. And inside the loop, I'm random playing, wait 2 seconds, random play. So this just proves to me everything's working happily. So if I come to my initialize DFPlayer function, again I'm just outputting a line. This tells me it's got to this point, it's not crashed out or done something weird. I'm beginning the software serial by connecting to the pins that we just created. I'm not worried about the rest of this. I'm then beginning this serial connection. It's then going to go through a bunch of different MP3 settings. Again, this has come straight from the GitHub tutorial, but this should set our MP3 player now. They can sometimes take 2 or 3 seconds to actually boot up and start working. So if it doesn't work immediately, don't worry. So I'm not going to worry too much about all of these things, that they just work. I mean, the main key one is like setting volume. Maximum volume is 30. So it is conceivable in the future we could have a volume dial on our transmitter and it would change the volume inside our little droid. So this is just sort of outputting what's the MP3 player doing right now, what volume is it currently set to. The key one I was interested in is this number of tracks. This should be getting the number of tracks on the SD card, but I just did a very quick test and it's returning just the number 1. So there's something a bit glitchy there. I shall come back to that when I've solved it. But it can work, and it's just outputting how many tracks have we got. So if I come down to random play, like I said originally, I was using the random 1-2 number of tracks. So if you got 30 tracks on there, it would play between 1 and 30 randomly. But it's just not quite working at the moment. I'm going to come back to that. But it will work between this 1 to 10. So again, you can just look how many tracks you've already put on, hard code it in, and it will play that track. And I'm just saying, once you play the track, wait 3 seconds. This is then going to come back up into our loop, and it's going to do another one. So also, I've got a little speaker. This is one of those sort of laptop ones, quite cheap off Amazon. Oops, you can't see it. And I've just put the pins straight onto the connectors you saw me solder on earlier. I'll do a neater job when it goes in the droid itself. So if I now plug this in, there we go, we've got the bing bong, so I know it's picked it up. And then I should be able to just make sure I've still got the right ESP selected. Yes, I have. I'm on port COM4, and now I can just press upload. And if I open up my serial monitor, we should see it give us the right information. There we go, so it's booting up, initializing. Again, these delays are made by me.
Just following standard Jedi mission protocol. Just following standard Jedi mission protocol. Very clever for a hologram. The past is the past. It's overheating.
Okay, so I've just unplugged the speaker for the moment, but we can tell it's looping through these tracks. So our next step will be to integrate that into our actual wireless code for the transmitter and the receiver. Now we know it's quite happy with the actual MP3s. So I've just loaded up the last version of the receiver code, the number 2. I'm just going to do the usual save as. Again, I could do proper version control, and I'm just going to put underscore with MP3. Oops, MP3. So if I just load up the other version we've just been working on, I can now be extremely lazy and I can just copy this across. So there we go. I'm just going to put also with MP3. So I've got those libraries. I can just come down a little bit. I'm going to drag these in. In fact, I'll grab the whole lot in one go. And again, you can just download this straight from GitHub. I'll put it all up in a little while and put a link below. So again, I'll come down into our thing. Now this is the bit I need to change. So I've got obviously left motor, right motor, dome motor, but I've not got sound. So I need to change this data structure. So I'm just going to put int SND for sound, and I'll have to make sure I change the other version as well. So if I now come into this little bit, into setup, so I've got setup and setup. Let's have a look. Initialize DFPlayer and random play. So I'm just going to copy these in. So that's after set up Wi-Fi. I want to do servos first because I want to make sure it's not suddenly driving off. So I'm going to put that there. Now if I tried to compile this now, it would crash because these two functions do not exist. So if I just come to this point. So again, when you're copying code, make sure you are very careful with brackets and where things are going. So if I just come down, I'm going to grab that whole function. Could tidy that up a little bit and take up a bit less space. And then the random play, let's copy that again. So again, I would need to look at that 1 to 10. I may have fixed that before I upload this to GitHub, depends how if I can solve it or not. Okay, so therefore, there we go. We've now got that code in place. I'm going to come down here into our loop. Now I've not actually tried this before, so this will be first. So if I just go int snd equals droid commands snd, and then just like down here, I can do the same sort of thing again. I can just go if snd equals 1. I can play a random sound. So again, just go and check. Is that what did I call it? Oh, random play. So I'm being lazy again. I can just put random play. So that should give us a sound effect. I'm hoping that 3-second delay won't stop the droid from working. We'll have to test that before it comes back. In fact, it probably will. So what I'm going to do right now is just take that out, because what I don't want to do is when I press the sound button, the droid just suddenly stops or keeps on going for 3 seconds while it's playing the sound. But again, these things we'll have to test and tweak a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to have to press save on that one. So I'm now in the transmitter code. So we've already got the defined sound on D1, so we already know which switch we're pressing, so I'll leave that as it is. I'm going to come down here, again to make sure this matches. Sound, it's got the sound. Let's just come down, looking through here, looking through all the code. So I've got the pins already been set up, so that's good. We did that in the previous week. Scroll down a bit more, inside loop. So again, I'm just going to go in. Now I can't obviously use the sound because I've already used that just there for the actual pin number. So I'll just go sound, oops, equals 0. Yeah, so I've got I'm printing out again, that was all to do with debugging, but I can now put sound equals 1, because obviously we set it to 0, so if we have pressed the button it'll become 1, and then I can finally just go down with lazy, copy that, snd equals sound. So that should be fine. Like I said, I've not pre-tested this code yet. I'm going to do that in a moment and we'll see if that works. So I've still got the receiver plugged in. I'm going to come over to this one and copy that across. I've unplugged the speaker so that it wouldn't keep irritating us. Okay, it's copied the code across. We can see it's in the loop and it's lagging because it's not receiving any signal, which is what we'd hope and expect to see. Okay, so I've got the transmitter that we've previously made, and we'll copy the code across to this. Okay, so it knows it's delivering, so let's just go through these buttons.
It's overheating.
There we go.
Perhaps one of them was once a Jedi. Its memory core stays partially active even after termination.
So my next step is going to be to get the actual droid sounds rather than Huyang, and then put it all back into the droid and be ready to actually use. So again, back over to the workbench. Okay, so there it is kind of plumbed in. So I've got the transmitter in my hands. Let's have a quick look. So there we go, forward, backwards, our rotation, our dome, and okay, so what's left now is to sort of make it all neat inside there, shorten the wires a little bit so it fits properly. Now something else to consider is this is just a nice little MP3 with a speaker. This is a little transmitter. You could easily drop this into a piece of cosplay or other prop and you've got yourself a little remote triggered MP3 sound maker. So there we have it. That's how you can make a full R2D2 in a weekend, complete with the drive system, dome control and sound, including the electronics and the programming to make it all work. So if you found any part of this series useful, please remember to like, subscribe, click the notification bell. I'll be coming back very soon with some more content. See you soon.